Hello, so Future Polypede Works here, coming to you with an edit because some very important information regarding Hanafuda has come out after this video was initially recorded, but before it could be published. So, in SBS 111, it is found out that I was absolutely correct about a lot of things on Hanafuda, which I explained in my Dino Daddy video. So, yes, he is the biological father of OT and Page 1. And yes, he was a grand help to Kaido because we find out, much like Albert or King, he was a fanatic for Kaido and believed in his strength and was also responsible for providing the Beast Pirates with their various devil fruits because, as I explained, there has been no Beast Pirate who has come into the organization already having an ancient Zoan devil fruit. So it is Hanafuda who provided them with all of their abilities. That initially is insane. But in addition, we also find out that Hanafuda is supposedly deceased. Do I think this is the case? No, I think we're setting ourselves up for a Sabo situation in which we're going to find out that he was actually alive the whole time, and that will lead into the theory that I'm going to go over in this video. Additionally, it doesn't make sense for a character to only have existed in SBSs to be so vital to so many events in the manga and just not appear in the manga. That doesn't make sense to me because now we know he's responsible for the makeup of the Beast Pirates as they exist in the canon, and he's also responsible for Kuma becoming a warlord. So it would only make sense for him to come back. Additionally, with the information I say in this video, I can't help but to bring up that it would be extraordinarily interesting for him to be in Cross Guild with Moria, because now we would have the two warlords who were very intimately involved with Kaido on the same team. Moria was a rival whose life was ruined by Kaido, and Hanafuda was his right-hand man from the looks of it, who provided him with all the abilities necessary to become the force that he is today. Anyway, on with the rest of the video. I think Hanafuda is going to join Cross Guild. And here's why. Okay, so I was looking through some chapters for research, and I came across chapter 862, which I found very interesting as a jumping off point, because in chapter 862, we have an art request. And that art request is of Young Buggy and Shanks playing cards. And they are playing Hanafuda cards, which is quite funny. And then in the background, we have Rayleigh and Roger, but then on the side, we also have a crocodile wearing a pirate hat. This is very reminiscent of the character Crocodile, who is very much a part of Cross Guild at this moment. And it reminded me of a cover story in which Miss Golden Week used her color traps to grant the dreams of all of the former Baroque Works agents. And Crocodile's dream was to be Pirate King, and he was wearing a pirate's coat and a pirate's hat, looking very much like Roger. So here it's a bit twofold, because one, we have the actual Roger in this art request, and two, we have a crocodile dressing up like a pirate. So I can see the parallels there. On the topic of Crocodile, though, it's very funny considering that Crocodile and Hanafuda have something in common. You see, despite devil fruits being the primary power system of the series, very few people are enthusiasts about them. Crocodile was the first real enthusiast in the series when it came to devil fruits, as he was trying to explain to Luffy the crevasse of difference between his power and Luffy's power. What's interesting about this is that as we move forward, we find out that Crocodile has this weird relationship with Zoans, despite not being a Zoan himself, because his organization is the first to show that objects can eat Zoan fruits by looking at Mr. Four's gun, who is now a dog named Lasso, who has eaten the dog fruit model Daishud. Then way later in Impel Down, it was Crocodile who introduces us to the concept of awakening by explaining that the jailer beasts are in fact awakened Zoans, and in being awakened Zoans, they can get right back up after being knocked out, hinting to their regenerative abilities. So I find that very strange. What this has in common with Hanafuda is that Hanafuda, too, is a devil fruit enthusiast who has a focus on specifically Zoan type devil fruits of the ancient variety. But going back to Crocodile for a second, it's very interesting that in his conversation with Mihawk before Buggy exclaims that he wants to go find the One Piece, he mentions that they require military strength in order to acquire a utopia of sorts. I think the land for said utopia is most likely going to be Thriller, and I've talked about that in several videos, but I think the military strength required is going to fall in the lap of Hanafuda, seeing as how both Hanafuda and Crocodile have a bit of an expertise when it comes to Zoan fruits. I think this is going to be the gateway in us finding out more about ancient Zoans and why Hanafuda especially likes ancient Zoans. Because now in the story, we need to kind of justify what makes ancient Zoans so special outside of just being the powers of extinct animals. We need to have a good feel for what they can actually do, because so far they are the most underdeveloped ability of the Zoan subcategories. So yes, I do think in that way Hanafuda is going to be a bit of a general in Cross Guild. So I find it quite strange that both of these guys were warlords. Both of these guys were kicked out of the warlords very early in the timeline of things, as far as we know, because of course Hanafuda was defeated by Ace and then was removed from the warlords, and then Crocodile was defeated by Luffy and removed from the warlords. And then both of them end up having sort of like a very interesting enthusiasm about Zoan type devil fruits. On top of that, what is interesting is that Buggy, Mihawk, and Crocodile were at the War of the Best, which was the execution ground for Portgas the Ace, the man who defeated Hanafuda. So that too is quite interesting, that all of these characters have something in common with Hanafuda. Hanafuda was defeated by Ace, and then all of them were at the place in which Ace was supposed to be executed and then was later killed by Akainu. Following that, another interesting point of reference is that I do wonder if there's a prior relationship between Crocodile and Hanafuda, seeing as how they were the only ones in the warlords who had any sort of similar interest. Because when you look at every other warlord, none of them are particularly interested in devil fruits, at least when you look at the original 7 and beyond that, considering Hanafuda. So it's a very interesting thought process to go through. With that being said, I could believe that in the future, Hanafuda does find his way into Cross Guild, perhaps as revenge for the world government revoking his warlord status after losing to Ace. And it would be very, I guess, of the season, because we just got finished talking about Kuma and all of his trials and tribulations. And it was Kuma who was the one who replaced Hanafuda. What's also very interesting about this too is that this could go into talking about Gecko Moria as well, because Gecko Moria too was at the War of the Best with the other characters here. But with that being said, yes, I could believe in the future that Hanafuda will join Cross Guild. And for a small bonus, and this doesn't really mean anything, but in chapter 826, I found that we're actually in the Decks of the World cover story. And whom do we see but Perona and Mihawk gardening with the human drills? So I just think that's interesting too, that if you reverse the 6 and the 2 around, you end up in another spot where there are, one, a actual Cross Guild member, is, and 2, where a potential cross guild member is. So that 2 in itself is just very interesting. Might not mean anything, but I find it very interesting. But with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works.